Hello everyone and welcome back, dear friends of Italian Gangai. Today we are going to conduct some ballistic experiments on a topic that is certainly of great interest. We are talking about ballistic plates. These are the essential pieces of protective gear that generally allow military operators or public security personnel to be shielded from high-velocity gunfire or armed threats they might face in the field. Let's dive into how these protective systems perform under pressure. These protective devices are also available and completely legal for the civilian market, not just for law enforcement. So we're talking about security guards, and even private individuals can own them because they are not considered military equipment. There are some minor restrictions, but these limitations concern the type of material used, not the level of protection. Today, specifically for you, we are going to perform a very interesting comparison test, because we will be directly comparing ballistic protection plates ordered from Aliexpress against those from well-known brands. We want to see how these Chinese manufacturers who put these kinds of tactical accessories on the market at highly competitive price points actually perform. Now let's go right ahead and carefully unbox one of these specific plates together. I would really like to take a moment to remind you that these ballistic plates, by their very specific design, were originally created to be inserted into what we call plate carriers, which are generally used by professional military personnel in the field. Looking at this specific size, just to remind you once again, it is not necessarily a type of protection that can ultimately be considered effective in every single situation. We will have to wait and see out in the field what the actual level of protection really turns out to be. Of protection it can provide, but it doesn't make the wearer immune to the consequences of absorbing an impact. In other words, it's not a Superman cape that can deflect or bounce off hits without any consequences. Even a blow that is efficiently absorbed by ballistic protection can still cause trauma to the wearer. Trauma that can be quite serious and that can still make it necessary to get checked by a doctor, because you can sustain injuries that are serious enough, especially if they are located in the chest area, that can lead to cardiac arrest even without any external wounds. So what we're doing today is not meant to say, buy protective gear and then go shoot yourself on the field because it's fun. That's not the case, not at all. But to carefully evaluate and see if there really is a genuine possibility to consider this specific type of ballistic protection for your own personal safety within the home environment. Regardless of whether you are currently working, operating heavy equipment, or simply having some fun in an environment where firearms are frequently being used, then this item, on the other hand, is a specialized Temu plate that outwardly replicates the exact same physical dimensions as those other standard plates we discussed. This particular design is made so that it can be compatible with the vast majority of the most common plate carriers. But the material used here is completely different, and the same applies to the thickness. Right here, there is simply a solid iron plate. Let's take a look. It sticks. You can see that our flashlight magnets stick right to it. So it is definitely a type of steel with a very strong iron base. And we'll start to look together at some of their features and then go out into the field to test them. It will also be an opportunity to try out these very old protective vests that maybe some retired operators remember. They're the so-called undershirt vests that were used in the 1970s and 1980s, and they consist of a series of overlapping sheets, generally speaking. Made of nylon, perhaps interwoven with some aramid fibers such as Kevlar. I don't know exactly how the internal composition is structured, but these are protections that have a limited lifespan precisely because the chemical nature of the elements contained in these protections degrades over time, so their effectiveness decreases. Let's find out more. Let's take a moment to see together exactly how much each of these different plates actually weighs. Starting first with this specific one that I ordered from Aliexpress, which comes in at exactly 1 kilogram. Now let's move on and take a look at the one from Temu, which is the metal version. This one weighs 1 kilogram and 100 grams. Even though it is noticeably thinner than the first one, it is actually quite a bit heavier. Now, this next one is truly a solid steel plate, so let's see how it compares in. Based on my shooting experience, I can already imagine that this option will likely be the one to provide the most mediocre results. But we are going to see that for ourselves together right now in the field. Now, when it comes to the weight of these undershirts, we are really only talking about maybe 100 grams each. So these are quite negligible in terms of their weight. But as for what we want to find out together, we still have to take a closer look. Go and check now in the field. Come with me. So, while we get ready to head up to the range, we fill our hot water bottle with water to simulate, let's say, the resistance of human tissue. And let's remember that ballistic protections are not prohibited for civilians, not just the level 3A ones, those for pistol calibers up to .357 Magnum. Here we go. As you can see, this should more or less reproduce the resistance of a body, but also level 3 and level 4, those for rifles. The important thing is that they do not contain boron carbide or ballistic ceramic, which are materials classified by a 1990 law as armament materials. So before we go there, let's take advantage of this initial phase to give another reference, which is the thickness of our plates. Yours is 4 millimeters thick, and Ali's is about 1.7 centimeters thick. The small plate, the one for the soft undershirt, is 7 millimeters and a bit. And here we are with the first snow of the year, a very evocative location that will give us the chance to discover together, catapulted here onto the Mayala shooting field, which of the two formulas is actually the one we are looking for the winner. And above all, we want to see exactly up to what level of protection can be achieved with these high-quality made-in-China ballistic plates. Now let's carefully place our water-filled bag directly in front of a small barrel, which will effectively simulate, so to speak, the density of human tissue, since the structural integrity of the plate, after being hit by several consecutive shots, can still remain in a relatively stable condition. Some way no longer reflect the original condition. We'll start with a shot from a handgun, the most powerful one we have available, which is a commercial .357 Magnum with a full load, and we'll see how it performs. All right then, let's take a good look at this. Let's see what we have here. First of all, looking at the exterior, our bag remains absolutely intact and undamaged, and we can see that our shot penetrated right in the very center of the target, leaving just a slight bulge behind. We are going to mark it right away with this pen so we can easily identify it and distinguish it from all the others later on. Now for the next part of the test, we'll try it again with a 9mm handgun. As you can see here, our bag remains completely intact. The shot successfully penetrated the surface and is now slightly deformed on the back side. Once again, this specific test was a complete and total pass. Let's go ahead and take a moment to mark it clearly. Now, let's move on and try the same test with the Temu plate. We will start off with the .22 caliber. Even though we are only talking about a standard .22, this mini-mag is extremely fast and features a copper-plated tip, so it packs quite a punch. Shot that has an extreme tendency to over-penetrate, at least when we're talking about this small caliber. Let's see if at least this one holds up. It did hold up. There's a mark and a little bulge. It almost went through. As we can see, it's a metal plate. Now, it's not exactly sheet metal because it behaves a bit differently, being reinforced by a protective layer of heavy-duty fabric. Now let's take a moment to carefully mark the exact spot of impact, and then we will try again with the 9mm round to see how it holds up. At this point, we can really start to feel the significant force of the impact behind the material, but remarkably, our bag remains completely intact, and the shot was successfully stopped by the fibers, even though, let's say, it did cause a noticeable amount of blunt force deformation on the surface. Looking at the results, there is some extremely pronounced and severe deformation visible on the surface, so I honestly wouldn't have wanted to be in the place of our poor hot water bottle during that intense impact. Now, for the next part of the experiment, we'll try it out with the 38 Special to see what happens. Surprisingly, the bottle is still holding together, but let's just say it's looking a bit bent in on itself and quite heavily distorted, and the 38 caliber round did exactly what we expected it would do. It made a slightly less pronounced hole compared to the 9mm because it's a cartridge that ballistically has a greater mass but a lower velocity, so a lower kinetic energy. Now, however, let's try with the 357 and see if it can withstand the 357 Magnum, so if it manages to reach level 3A. We didn't make it to the others, and you can see very, very clearly that our target, alas, has stretched out its little paw. Massive hemorrhage here. You'd need a tourniquet. If you're finding this content interesting, know that for all channel subscribers, there's an extra video available just for them that will take this same... The level of your attention is likely much higher now. I bet you're feeling quite curious about the results, aren't you? Now, we are going to finally finish our comprehensive test by trying out this specific vintage undershirt from the 1970s, which, to be honest, even back in those days did not really offer much in the way of actual protection. And let's see right now, after all this significant time has passed, when by now even the original physical characteristics of the material and the fibers themselves have likely changed quite a bit. The materials have undoubtedly changed and deteriorated. What is it capable of, and is it even capable of stopping anything? Let's place this poor sacrificial undershirt in front of the barrel and try it out with the 22. Wow, it actually stopped it, didn't it? I can hardly believe my eyes right now. Look closely. The shot is right here. There it is, tucked into the fabric. There it is again. This is absolutely incredible, truly incredible. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have bet a single penny on this outcome. And yet, guys, as you can clearly see for yourselves, those simple undershirts actually worked against the force of the impact. It is just mind-blowing to witness this level of protection from something so basic. Let's go ahead and shoot another one to see if we can replicate these amazing results. All right, let's go ahead and shoot it with a 9mm. Let's give the 9 a try and see what happens. Come on. That is absolutely incredible. It completely stopped the round. It really stopped it. Just look at that. It is truly unbelievable but true. That is the power of Kevlar. I cannot believe how this material managed to absorb the impact, proving once again why it is the gold standard for ballistic protection. Nylon for sure, you can feel the impact on the back, but the fabrics wouldn't have been penetrated. It definitely would have broken something, and in the right spot, it could even, why not, cause cardiac arrest. So, as we said in the introduction, it's not Superman's cape, but it's better to have it than not. It is definitely much better to have this kind of protection on you rather than not having it at all. Especially in the case of being hit by a handgun shot. I would honestly say that it is always better to have it. Now, let's go ahead and try this with a 357 Magnum. Yeah, let's try the 357 without the external plastic protection, which, as we know, still does provide some level of protection. Yeah. So, let's finish up our tests with the usual pistol calibers, as we always do for these evaluations. He was wearing a vintage shirt that looked like it came straight out of the 1970s. At the time, there was a brief moment where he actually believed he might have survived the ordeal, but the reality was much more tragic, and unfortunately, he didn't end up making it through in the end. Even though it has been 5 long years since that day, so much has changed and a great deal has happened in the time that has followed. So, with all of that in mind, let's take a closer look at what we have here. Well, it looks like this one didn't go through either. The level of deformation here is truly impressive. I mean, really quite impressive to witness. It even managed to successfully contain the impact. The bullet itself didn't expand in a destructive way at all. These specific ones are the ones we got from Temu, and as you can clearly see right here, the entire thing stayed perfectly contained in a... This copper-plated sphere is truly impressive. Honestly, it is truly impressive. I would really like to take a moment to remind you that these specialized safety and protection supports are absolutely available for purchase by civilians. This applies regardless of the specific protection level you require, whether it is level 3A, level 3, or even level 4. Just as long as they do not fall under the specific categories of items that are strictly considered restricted materials of armament under the 1990 law, so as long as they don't contain ballistic ceramic or boron carbide. Those we cannot purchase or possess. A special license is required, which is only for military use, so they are rarely found on the market. But for everything else, enjoy. If you like this video, even if it's just at the end, never at the beginning, and just on trust, I kindly ask you to click the little button at the bottom of your screen to reward my small effort in sharing information with a simple, super nice like. If you think others might be interested in this content, remember to share it on all social media. But if you're here for the first time, at least subscribe. It's super simple. Just click on my face with the gas mask, and by activating the notification bell, you'll be informed in real time about every new video uploaded, so you won't miss a single one. That's all for this time. I should be in America right now, and you, well, see you next time.